I was sitting in my study, a small but comfortable room on the first floor of my old colonial house. The wooden panels lining the walls had darkened with age, and the room carried the rich, comforting smell of old books and burning wood from the fireplace. I had settled into my favorite leather armchair, a cup of coffee steaming on the desk beside me. The house was quiet, with only the occasional crackle from the fire breaking the silence. It was late, and the world outside was enveloped in darkness. But I was absorbed in my work, typing away on my laptop. Directly beneath me was the basement, a space I rarely visited. It was accessed through a narrow, winding staircase hidden behind a door in the hallway. The basement was the oldest part of the house, with low ceilings, exposed beams, and a cold, concrete floor. The walls were lined with shelves filled with boxes of forgotten belongings, and the place had always given me an uneasy feeling, as if the shadows down there were a little too deep, a little too still. As I worked, my fingers paused over the keyboard. The faintest sound caught my attention, something just on the edge of hearing. I listened, straining to identify it, but it was gone. Shaking my head, I returned to my work. But a few minutes later, the noise returned. This time, it was clearer. A muffled thud, followed by a low, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I froze, my eyes drifting to the ceiling. The sound was coming from the basement, directly below me. My heart began to beat a little faster as I listened. The noise continued, steady and deliberate, as if someone, or something, was moving furniture down there. I set my laptop aside, grabbed my flashlight from the desk drawer, and stood up. The house had always had its creaks and groans, but this was different. This was too deliberate, too real. The noise stopped for a moment, leaving me in tense silence. But then it started again, accompanied by the distinct sound of footsteps, heavy and slow, echoing from the basement. My breath caught in my throat. The footsteps were unmistakable, but they didn't belong to anyone in my house. I was alone. Gripping the flashlight tightly, I made my way to the hallway, each step echoing the pounding of my heart. I reached the door to the basement and hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. The dragging noise was louder now, almost frantic, as if something was struggling in the darkness below. Taking a deep breath, I turned the knob and pushed the door open. The stairway descended into pitch blackness, the air thick with the musty scent of damp earth. I flicked on the flashlight and shined it down the steps, the beam of light cutting through the dark. I descended slowly, each creaking step making my pulse quicken. The noises stopped the moment my foot touched the cold concrete floor. The silence was deafening, pressing in on me from all sides as I stood in the middle of the basement, the flashlight's beam sweeping across the room. Everything seemed untouched. Old furniture covered in white sheets, stacks of boxes pushed against the walls, and a few rusty tools scattered on a workbench. But as I took a step forward, the dragging sound resumed, this time right behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, but there was nothing there. The basement was empty. The footsteps started again, slow and heavy, coming from just above my head, in the study, where I had been sitting only moments before. A cold wave of realization washed over me. Whatever had been in the basement was now upstairs. Panic surged through me as I bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind me. The house was still, the only sound my ragged breathing. I cautiously made my way back to the study, the flashlight trembling in my hand. When I entered the room, it looked exactly as I had left it. The warm glow of the lamp, the crackling fire, the books neatly aligned on the shelves. Everything was in place. But something was off. The study chair, which I had left tucked under the desk, was now pulled back, as if someone had been sitting in it. And then, the footsteps began again, slowly circling the room, though no one was there. The sounds stopped abruptly, leaving me in oppressive silence. I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Something had followed me from the basement. Something that was no longer content to stay in the shadows. From that night on, the basement was no longer just a part of the house. It had become the heart of a dark presence that now haunted my every step. The sounds never stopped, always reminding me that something was still down there, waiting, and it was no longer confined to the depths.